Well, those are the big headlines we are tracking for you today on ET Now. And for our very first topic on financial planning for the family, I have with me a very special guest, Dilshad Billimoria, founder and chief financial planner with Dilzer Consultants Private Limited. Dilshad, many thanks for joining us today on ET Now. Dilshad, when we talk about money, when we talk about financial planning, it's usually left to the earning member of the family, the patriarch, sometimes the matriarch for the families that do have those. Or even worse, sometimes even the women are left out of the financial planning decisions, as perhaps families set new budgets or, look at all the problems that they have from a money perspective. So Dilshad, tell us why it's important to ensure that, you involve all the family members, or at least the adult family members in this entire process.
Hi, Mobina, and thank you for having me on the show. Wishing you, your team, and all our viewers a very good 2021, a better one for sure. So to answer your question, yes, I think this is a good time to, consolidate and have a look at one's finances in terms of prioritizing goals. And it's very important that both the husband and wife sit together and do this, as a joint exercise, because, prioritizing it at the beginning of the year is important so that there is no confusion or disconnect in communication at a later stage. Ensuring that one's budgets are in place and even planning for one's expenses, larger expenses that, are expected in the new year or throughout the year is important to plan for. This would also be a good time, I would say, to, refinance one's loans. So as we saw last year, there were some interest rate cuts and, it would be prudent to identify those loans which are at a higher cost and, discuss that with your financial advisor in case it needs to be moved. And I would also say unwanted or low interest earning investments which are not doing well. I think this is a good time to consolidate them, keeping one's asset allocation, of course, in mind.
Okay. A very tough thing to do for a lot of parents is talking about money, especially money-related problems that many may face. I'm sure many of them may have faced it. In fact, during this COVID year, people may have lost their jobs, their businesses have been disrupted. But sometimes you want to shelter your family, especially the younger ones in the family, from the kind of problems you're facing, which we often term as adult problems. You really don't want the money issues that you face to affect your family's lifestyle, your kids' lifestyle. How do you recommend, Dilshad, that parents talk to their kids, their teen kids, or maybe their 10 and above kids about money? And it's sometimes a very delicate matter to handle. So how do you recommend they go about it?
Actually, a very young age is important on teaching money lessons to children in a fun way, because we can see the same behavior patterns over the years as the child becomes an adult. So it's really important to imbibe the value of hard work and earning something only after they are able to work for it. So for smaller children, I would say start with creating small tasks around the house and just rewarding them and encouraging them to do more. And the reward could be with smaller amounts of payments that they could understand the value for. And for the bigger and older children who are as old as say 16 and 17, I think it's a very, very important thing that they also become part of the discussions that the financial advisor has with their parents annually at the end of the year. Because many of these children are also applying to universities overseas and abroad and would like, to share what are the costs, because they would have done their own internal research on which university and where and how much would be the cost. So I think it's important that all of us are on the same page and we sit together and understand what are these various, the institutions that they're applying for and what are the costs associated and what does it entail in terms of saving and investments, from the parents' point of view.
Okay. Yeah, understandably, and I hope that a lot of our viewers as well pay heed to what Dilshad said, and sort of ensure that the communication is sort of simple. It's clear. This is just a guidance that Dilshad has given for parents. It depends, of course, on the nature of your child and the attitude of your child, which could be extremely subjective. So yeah, it just sort of depends on from family to family. Now, Dilshad, we know what 2020 threw upon us. What do you recommend middle-class households should brace themselves for in 2021? Some money habits that every member of the family should inculcate. And this is not just because we are coming out of a crisis, but just in general, a healthy money practice or, financial practice. What do you recommend that, tomorrow, if let's say I'm sitting down with my family and, my kids, what should be my, conversation with them on money habits? Lost out on Dilshad's feed over there. But just to sort of reiterate on what, Dilshad said. Okay, I think we've managed to get her back. So Dilshad, I was just asking you about, how do you recommend middle-class households budget, for in 2021? And what do you think are the money habits that, family members should inculcate, for the new year? And not just because we're coming out of a crisis, but because in general, these are healthy money habits. What do you think they should start off with?
Right. So as we saw in the year is ending, because of the pandemic and COVID, there were many very different behavior patterns that we saw among investors and clients. I think there was much more interest even in the younger generation towards retirement. So, earlier we never thought that, and none of the younger children would want to even discuss about their retirement. They would say, oh, it's years away. Let's, enjoy for today or the next 2-3 years and plan for a goal. So I think it's important that, and the pandemic has really brought finance, savings, and the need for, ensuring that one's future is, well saved for and planned for. So I think in terms of money habits, it's important that one, is in charge of their own financial decisions. And by this, I'm not talking about do-it-yourself investors. I'm talking about, having a joint decision-making with your financial advisor and giving them the complete picture for both you and them to take an informed decision on the actions that have to be planned for the year. And to try and attain financial independence, right? So that's what everyone strives for. So I think a step-by-step approach and, as small savings also would accumulate towards long-term. So I think these are the two simple kind of things that people could look at to start by taking charge of their own finances, and trying to attain financial independence and work towards that.
Okay, all right, excellent. Dilshad, now this is a question I've been, I've been meaning to ask you, and this is with respect to curating a portfolio. Let's assume that we have an individual who's aged, between maybe 30 to 40. He wants to invest his money for long-term wealth creation. Let's consider maybe for, his retirement years, so more than 10, 15 years away. What do you think are the must-haves in this portfolio for the year 2021? How do you think he or she should curate their portfolio?
Right. So I think it all boils down to the asset allocation mix, and in the last year, again, because of the pandemic and because of various crises that we've seen in the recent years, I think it's very important that newer and more diversified asset mixes and asset classes are added. So for a 30 to 40-year-old I would say add, asset classes like, multi-assets like, metals and materials and besides, of course, gold and silver, as well as an asset mix, have sufficient ETFs. And, you could go with healthcare, or you could just Nifty index ETF, which is the safe and the low cost ETF investment options. You could look at international funds that have gained a lot of traction in the last 1 year, especially. And of course, in the domestic equity side, you can concentrate towards multi-cap and large and mid allocations. And on the debt side, you have a core portfolio and a satellite portfolio. So you could look at some amount of gilt allocation towards the satellite portion of one's portfolio.
Okay, well, there you have it. That's, of course, a rough portfolio curated by Dilshad. But, we always strongly recommend that for all our viewers who want to, get a more customized solution, it's always best to go meet up with, a financial planner and, just have a face-to-face or actually a Zoom to Zoom discussion on the entire topic. It could take a little longer. Everyone's profile is very different. Your objective as well may be different. Your risk-taking ability and capacity will be very different. So we always advise that all of you move on to, rather meet with a personal finance planner, for the same. Okay, well, this is the show where we also answer your questions and queries. So, we've been talking about how to involve your family in financial planning. If you have any questions, queries, conundrums on how you can do that, because this is not something traditionally that your parents may have done with you. But I guess it's high time that changes. It's high time that children learn about money and finances early on. They're anyway exposed to so many things, so why not prudent money management? So if you have any questions or queries on this topic, you can write into us on the Money Show at etnow.tv and we'll get your questions answered. Well, for now, let's take on board our first question received. We have Mahindra Vyas writing in saying, how do you recommend one manages nominees for efficient transfer of assets? I have 3 bank saving accounts. I have a mutual fund portfolio and a house property. The nominees for most of them is my wife. She is employed and has her own bank accounts, but I also have 2 kids aged 8 and 12 years. So all of his assets are either on his own name, maybe in joint name with his wife, or she is a nominee in most of these assets. So that's good, but he wants to sort of ensure that's being shared with his minor kids, by the way, 8 and 12 years old. So Dilshad, how do you recommend Mahindra and his wife can do that?
I think it's very important to have a will in place, and we recommend having a will when any of you have a family dependent member with you. So in his case, he has a wife and children. So this would be a good time to create a will and to list all his assets. And ensure that, of course, in the assets also separately, he could always mention the nominees as his, wife and children. But it's best to create a will and to keep updating the will with the updated valuation of his assets, so that there is no, chance of any this kind of distribution of assets not against his will should anything happen. So yes, creating a will is very important, and as early as when you have a family dependent member.
Well, you've accumulated all of that wealth with a lot of effort. You've prudently invested in it. It may be for yourself, but if it is for your heirs, then all the more you need to ensure that you have a proper and efficient transfer process. And the best way to do that is creating a will. Don't think that a will is something that you have to do on one of those legal papers or on a stamp paper. You actually just need to sort of note it down on a proper piece of paper, sign it off, and keep updating it as well. If you maybe add a real estate to your list of assets, then ensure you update it in your will. It's extremely important to do that. Okay, next question is coming in from Raghu. He says that my 20-year-old son has asked me if he should start trading in equities, indirect equities. I have no knowledge or experience regarding the same. However, I believe that everyone does start off somewhere, so I'm inclined to give him the capital to start off. But of course, as an expert, I would like to ask you, what do you recommend? Dilshad, in these last 8-9 months, we have seen quite a surge in, your retail investors indulging in trading, and especially because now trading has become so easy, right? You literally have an app to do so. You can trade anytime, anywhere, and now it allows for even complex F&O trading. So what would you do, Dilshad, if your 20-year-old son, or actually since you have the financial background, but let's say if somebody else's 20-year-old son goes up to them and says, Dad, I want to start trading, I want some money, and he's right in a way, because everybody starts off somewhere, but do you think this is the right way to start off, Dilshad, in the world of equity markets?
I think it's a fantastic idea to start, but I would recommend that he first uses some sort of a game app, right? So as we mentioned, there are so many people interested in trading activity, especially because the markets have gone up in the last 1 year. So, and there are so many apps and games, that one can even use to get started. So I would say at least let him start with any form of trading. So you have, for example, my son does, oil trading and currency trading and equity trading, and and I would want that to become a sure footing and then move to the real equity markets. But if you would like to start even on the real market, I think the best way is to start with a broad-based index kind of investment and then move to large caps. And then, of course, the, market capitalization, which would become more risky, would be the mid and small caps. But I think to get started, I think it's a fantastic idea. He just needs to, dive in and see how it goes. And starting with a small capital is definitely worth it.
All right. Well, Dilshad, thank you so much for joining us today on ET Now and helping our viewers with their questions and queries. And of course, season's greetings to you and your family as well.
You too. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to get a glimpse of this episode yet again, you can log on to ET Now's YouTube channel and find the entire episode under the Money Show playlist. And remember, we are always here every day at 5 p.m. to get your questions and queries answered. So if we've not been able to take up your query today, we'll do so in the days to come. So keep writing into us. Our email address is themoneyShow@etnow.tv. It's constantly being monitored. And on that note, we'll slip into a very short break. Lots more lined up. In fact, when we return from our short break, we are going to be giving you a step-by-step guide on how to file your income tax return. So get your laptops out or notebooks out and take note. We'll be right back.